In the beginning, dragons ruled a world that was shrouded in fog and had grey crags and arch trees. It was the Age of Ancients where neutrality took place. These dragons were immortal, or at least, what caused their mortality was unknown. For a while, the natural progression of things were looking good, but then without any explanation, fire appeared. It brought about the Age of Fire. The neutrality of the ancient age changed, and it was a matter of welcoming contradicting forces in the world. The contradicting forces brought heat and cold, light and dark in the world, along with life and death as well. But as we all know, when a fire sets out, eventually it fades away, as it cannot last forever. While the fire was spreading, an intelligent race of being came into contact with the fire. They lived under the surface of the world. The fire contained Lord Souls, and they had colossal powers within. It was only a matter of time until the dwellers underneath could harvest such powers. There was the Soul of Death, the Soul of Life, the Soul of Light, and lastly, the Dark Soul. Of all the beings, 3 discovered the Lord Souls. Grave Lord Nido, the first of the dead, claimed the Soul of Death. The Witch of Izalith and her Daughter of Chaos, or children in this case, claimed the Soul of Life. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, claimed the Soul of Light, but the Dark Soul was found by the furtive pygmy, the ancestors of mankind, way later on, and kept it hidden so it could remain a secret. With the souls claimed, the lords decided to fight the dragons that ruled the world during the Age of Ancients. One of the dragons, named Seath, betrayed his kind by revealing to the lords that their immortality lies in the dragon scales, and with this knowledge, the lords defeated the dragons and won the war. With this, the Age of Ancients came to an end, and thus began the Age of Fire. For some time, everything kept going just fine, but the fire that came eventually started to fade away. With the fire extinguishing and the humans possessing the Dark Soul, the Lord of Sunlight, Gwyn, began to fear for the Age of Darkness and the prophesied Dark Lord who would be born among the humans that carried the Dark Soul. This gave Gwyn 2 choices. He could either let the flame die and usher in the Age of Darkness, or sacrifice himself and extend the ongoing Age of Fire, which will delay the prophecy. He decided to sacrifice himself, and thus the Age of Fire kept on going for even longer. But this is not permanent, as fire will eventually die again. His decision to sacrifice himself in order to extend his Age of Fire brought about the undead curse on humanity. Those who died were afflicted with the dark sign. It's a burning mark that implied that the dead would eventually go hollow and turn into husks or undead. This is where our journey begins in Dark Souls. Our hero is a chosen undead with a consciousness, so even if we are hollowed, we can still go on as if we never died, and we must journey through Gwyn's kingdom of Lordran in order to keep the fire going or turn our back to it. We also visit the past and meet Manus, the father of the Abyss, who may or may not be the long-gone furtive pygmy. Eventually, we meet Guinevere, the princess of sunlight and the daughter of Gwyn, who gives us the Lord Vessel and ultimately allowing us to visit Kiln of the First Flame. But first, we need the souls of Nido, Seath, Bed of Chaos, and the 4 kings, and then offer those souls to the Lord Vessel placed at the door of Kiln of the First Flame. After defeating the Knights of Gwyn, we fight against Hollowed Gwyn, now known as the Lord of Cinder. Upon killing him, we get the choice. Either sacrifice ourselves and keep the fire going, or turn back and become the prophesied Dark Lord. But it doesn't matter which ending is chosen. If we sacrifice ourselves, the Age of Fire goes on for longer again until another chosen undead comes and decides to either sacrifice themselves and let the Age of Fire going, or become the new Dark Lord. And if we choose to become a Dark Lord, again a new chosen undead arrives and will defeat the current Dark Lord and will decide to either keep the Age of Fire going or become the Dark Lord. The cycle continues and goes on forever. The first location is the Northern Asylum. As a chosen undead, a man named Oscar, Knight of Astora, helps us to get out of the prison cell. After meeting with him, he gives us a key and some Estus flask. Killing some more husk, we get to fight the Asylum demon and get the first humanity, which allows us to become human. Fast forward, a giant crow takes us to Firelink Shrine, which acts as the hub area.
to leave the Undead Asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
Dark Souls is an RPG, so it allows the players to visit any location in any order they want to. But we will explore Dark Souls in the way most players normally would. Reaching Firelink Shrine, we meet a guy simply sitting beside the bonfire who tells us everything we need to know moving forward. Until this point, we didn't really have any motivation to continue the journey forward. But he tells us that there are two bells of awakening. The first one is above at the Undead Church, the other one is at the ruins of Blighttown, which is far below us. We start to work towards the bell above, going to Undead Burg and Undead Parish. We kill the Taurus demon and also kill our first Black Knight, which is one of the Knights of Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder. Up ahead, we meet Solaire of Astora, who tells us he is here in order to find his son. Next up, we get to kill the first dragon and reach Undead Parish, where we kill the Bale Gargoyles and ring the first bell. Fast forward to Blighttown, we fight the Chaos Queen Quelaag, and after she's dead, we get to ring the second bell, which opens up Sen's fortress. Visiting the Sen's fortress, we fight the Iron Golem and kick him off the ledge. Then we are taken to a new place named Anor Londo. This place is important as it also gives us access to the painted world of Ariamis and also a step into entering the DLC Artorias of the Abyss. From this point on, we fight numerous bosses until we kill Gwyn and finish the Dark Souls story with any of the two endings. As the name implies, this asylum is located in the far north. It imprisons the undead, and the chosen undead is also kept here as well. Outside the prison cells, an asylum demon guards the main door, so that no prisoner can escape the asylum. But in the ancient legends, it is stated that a chosen undead will go on a pilgrimage to Lordran, land of the ancient gods. So, the asylum demon doesn't stand a chance against the chosen undead. Up ahead, a raven waits outside. It is the Firelink messenger guiding the undead to the land of ancient gods. After getting access to the elevator in Firelink, the chosen undead can come back here to kill Hollowed Oscar and the stray demon situated below, the floor where the asylum demon is fought, and going all the way back to the cell where the journey began. A peculiar doll can be found, which works as a key to enter the painted world of Ariamis. Lastly, Snuggly the Crow can also be found on the right side of the edge of the Northern Asylum. The Firelink Shrine acts as a hub and connects multiple places. NPCs that are saved will also appear here as merchants for the chosen undead. The shrine connects to Undead Burg, New Londo Ruins, Blighttown, Valley of the Drakes, and the Catacombs. It is a fortified town surrounded by large walls and watchtowers. Filled with hostile undead, it consists of both an upper and lower section. The lower section can be accessed with the basement key at the door atop the bridge, opposite the Hellkite Dragon. In the lower section, the Capra Demon can be found and fought. There are also the male and female merchants selling various items to the chosen undead. Following up from Undead Burg, Undead Parish is the bridge to the Sunlight Altar where the chosen undead meets with Andre the Blacksmith. From the looks of it, it seems that this used to be a religious place as there is a church located in the middle of the town. There are some theories surrounding the statues, but we will not focus on those as they're not confirmed and purely speculative. After killing the Capra Demon, a key is achieved that opens a door to the depths. It is basically a large sewer full of rats and undead husks. It is also the primary way of getting to Blighttown. Those who are banished from Undead Burg are banished to the depths for their greed. As this is a sewer, no sunlight enters in. There are also 2 undead butchers found in the depths, women man-eaters. Being aware of Blighttown's dangers, the inhabitants built a giant door to separate it. The gaping dragon resides in the depths, distant and deformed descendant of everlasting dragons guarding entrance to Blighttown. Blighttown is a huge area. It has an upper part and also a lower part. While the upper area is hard to navigate, the bottom is a poisonous swamp. It is full of mosquitoes. It is necessary to navigate through Blighttown, as up ahead of it, the chosen undead fights with Chaos Witch Quelaag in Quelaag's domain, and after she has been dealt with, the second bell of awakening can be rung, which then opens up the doors of Sen's fortress, and Quelaag's sister is also situated below. Following the swamps of Blighttown, an illusionary wall lies ahead. Hitting it reveals another one, and after hitting that, we get access to the Great Hollow. It is basically an optional area along with Ash Lake, which can be found after reaching the bottom of the Great Hollow. Sen's fortress is the primary way of getting to Anor Londo by reaching the top and defeating the Iron Golem. It is a large fort made of stone. It has titanite demons, serpents, and death traps within. This is what Andre of Astora says about this place. Sen's fortress is an old proving grounds built by the ancient gods. It is the only route leading to Great Anor Londo. Of course, most fools can't even find their way into that fortified death trap. After Lord Gwyn sacrificed himself to light the first flame and prolong the Age of Fire, his sons followed his design of shepherding the humans to repeat his sacrifice and preventing the coming of a Dark Lord among them. Accordingly, at the foot of Anor Londo and behind the Undead Burg, gods built Sen's fortress, the only route leading to their city, to serve as a further testing ground. The fortress would become the second main trial for the undead that managed to overcome the first challenge of the Bells of Awakening and seek to enter Anor Londo to receive the Lord Vessel. After ringing the Bell of Awakening placed on the undead church of the Undead Burg and in Quelaag's domain, the chosen undead would learn of their mission from the awakened Kingseeker Fremd at Firelink Shrine. The Primordial Serpent would tell them that their fate is to succeed Lord Gwyn and link the flame to continue the Age of Fire and undo the curse of undeath, directing them toward the Sen's fortress to be tested further and prove themselves worthy enough of entering the city of the gods, where they would acquire the Lord Vessel and continue their journey. After ringing the 2 bells, an enslaved giant would recognize that an undead has completed the first trial of their quest and open the gate to allow them to enter the fortress. The structure was filled with many lethal traps, including swinging blades, large rolling boulders, and hidden ballista traps to create the ultimate deadly challenge path. Many deadly enemies also guarded the fortress to hinder those who attempt to venture through. The main force of the defenders is composed of serpent soldiers and serpent mages, hybrids of the humans and snakes with monstrous appearance and strength, created by Seath the Scaleless to act as his jailers. Additionally, enslaved giants were used as gatekeepers, living launchers of fire bombs and loaders, a machine which will send boulders rolling throughout the fortress, creating environmental hazards capable of destroying those who wandered around the location. As the final challenge for those undead that managed to venture past the fortress, the gods placed an Iron Golem, a construct with the purpose of acting as a guardian for Anor Londo. The golem golem is a hunk of iron that makes up its iron armor of immense weight and is equipped with a heavy iron axe capable of releasing a powerful blade of wind. It's animated by a core that the gods created by infusing the bone of an archdragon with the power of souls. The golem served its purpose well, and over the centuries slayed countless heroes seeking to reach Anor Londo. For the few exceptional champions who would have managed to pass this further test, 3 Batwing demons would have to come to pick them up and transport them inside the walls of Anor Londo, where their trials and the journey to obtain the Lord Vessel would continue. Centuries after Lord Gwyn's sacrifice, as the first flame began to fade and the curse of the undead to regain strength, heroes and warriors from all different lands tried to reach Lordran and ventured to Sen's fortress to try and reach Anor Londo. Very few were successful, like the strongest Berenike knight known as Black Iron Turkus and a warrior of sunlight known as Solaire of Astora. However, most of them failed in their mission to conquer the fortress's challenges despite their multiple attempts over the decades, ending up trapped, hollow, or only became additional roadblocks to further hinder future warriors. Among them, the famous sorcerer Big Hat Logan that tried to reach the Duke's archives to seek Seath, the Scaleless's knowledge, the undead Prince Rickard, a legendary hero that wandered the lands in a fateful, ill-conceived journey until he ended up undead and in Lordran, and the Night King Rendal and his Baldur Knights that attempted to seek the Lord Vessel and restore the power of the flame to save their country plagued by undead. After defeating the Iron Golem at the top of Sen's fortress, Anor Londo can be visited by accessing the Resonance Ring, which in turn makes the Batwing demon appear. Then the demon takes the chosen undead and flies away to Anor Londo. In Anor Londo, the chosen undead has to fight Ornstein and Smough, which is a 2-on-1 boss battle. After defeating both of them, the chosen undead can enter the chamber of the princess. It is Princess Guinevere who then greets the undead and rewards the Lord Vessel to the undead. This allows to warp from bonfire to bonfire. Optional boss Darkson Gwyndolin, who is Gwyn's son, can also be fought here in Anor Londo. The painting in Anor Londo is not just a regular painting. After returning to the Northern Undead Asylum and going to the very first cell where the game started, a peculiar doll can be found. After acquiring the doll and approaching the painting, the chosen undead will then be warped into the world conveyed in the painting. Upon entering this world, the chosen undead cannot get out until they talk to Priscilla. Priscilla is yet another optional boss and she doesn't choose to fight the chosen undead. The painted world of Ariamis, as the name suggests, was created by Ariamis. At first, it was known as the Great Painting of Ariamis. Painting guardians were ordered to protect it through generations. There were some other unnamed paintings, however, the main duty of the guardians was to protect those of Ariamis. At some point, the guardians were not able to recall the reason for doing so. The painted world of Ariamis was probably created to hide crossbred Priscilla, once considered an abomination which has no place in this world. Priscilla clutched the peculiar doll tightly and was eventually drawn into the lonely painted world. This abomination was the birth of the dragon crossbreed, which is considered a bastard child. She was considered an abomination because the gods of Anor Londo feared her life hunt ability, seen as the antithesis of all life and a threat to their immortality. Once it was a peaceful land with kind inhabitants. It hosts a building similar to an old cathedral whose annex served as a storage house. The painted world of Ariamis has much in connection with Velka, goddess of sin. Within it, the black cleric robe can be found, said to be given to pardoners serving Velka. Other items attributed to Velka are scattered throughout the area, unique ones that can either be traded or obtained only in the painted world: Ring of Sacrifice, Velka's Rapier, Vow of Silence, Dark Ember, obtained in the painted world, is no longer known to any living blacksmith in the outside world, as it was long hidden by the church. Crow demons were designed as Velka's worshippers, whose bodies warped due to their devotion. They are the only enemies from which Souvenir of Reprisal can be obtained. The Darkroot forest can be accessed through multiple ways, but the traditional way is to simply take the left of where Andre is and follow straight. Darkroot Basin is just below Darkroot Garden. These two are very significant since we need to access the Darkroot Garden for the Sif boss fight and also the optional Moonlight Butterfly boss fight. But Darkroot Basin is also important because this is where the chosen undead fights the very first Hydra, and after killing it and following the stream, a golden golem will appear. A girl trapped within it can be seen. So, killing the golem will then set the girl free as well, and she is Dusk. It is important to free her since that is a requirement to access the DLC content. Valley of the Drakes can be reached right after getting to the Firelink Shrine. The first method is to get the Master Key or select it as a starting gift, then go down to New Londo Ruins. From there, take the stairs on the right and use the key to open the shortcut to Valley of the Drakes and Blighttown. Valley of the Drakes is a rather short area and there isn't much to do here. Another way of getting here is from the Darkroot Basin. There is a cave which acts as a shortcut from Darkroot Basin to the Valley of the Drakes. Blue drakes can be found roaming here, and also one undead dragon which is identical to the one found in the painted world of Ariamis. The Catacombs can be accessed right after reaching Firelink Shrine. Following the graves and going down the stairs is the entrance to this place. Just like the name suggests, it is full of skulls and skeletons, necromancers, and wisps. The Pinwheel boss fight can be done here, and beating the boss grants the chosen undead the right of kindling and any 3 of the masks. Other than that, it also grants the access to the Tomb of the Giants. Skeletons killed will keep rising until either the necromancer is killed, which do not respawn, or a divine weapon is used upon the skeletons, which can be done by visiting Andre. Right after defeating the Pinwheel, Tomb of the Giants can be accessed. Here, the chosen undead has to fight giant skeletons. To navigate through this place, there are a couple of options. Once every single necromancers are killed, a skull lantern will drop, which works as a torch, but the best option is to use the sunlight maggot, which can be acquired by donating 30 humanity to the Sister of Quelaag and getting access to a shortcut. It also allows the chosen undead to save Solaire in the future by killing the sunlight maggot, which attaches to Solaire later on if not killed. New Londo Ruins is full of ghosts that cannot be killed until a transient curse is used. There is a gate in New Londo, which when opened will act as a shortcut to Valley of the Drakes. The Abyss can also be accessed through New Londo Ruins. New Londo was a small country of humans close to Anor Londo, the city of the gods. When the 4 kings, the great leaders of the land, were recognized for their abilities and foresight, Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, rewarded them with a fragment of his powerful Lord's soul and the title of kings, using his power to bind and hold close to him the powerful humans, as the god also allowed them to build their civilization near his city. Over time, their city of humans grew to host countless lives and becoming a robust and flourishing culture. The advanced civilization even managed to develop healing sorceries that reduced bleeding and poisoning, like Remedy, an art unique to New Londo that was practiced by sorcerers called Healer, although at some point the first flame began to fade out, leading to the emergence of the Curse of Undead. The city continued to exist and function as an undead city, implying a good governance of the 4 kings who managed to adapt to the change. After Gwyn sacrificed himself to link the fading first flame, the primordial serpent Koth began searching for a human strong enough to become the Dark Lord capable of leading humans and usher in an Age of Dark. At some point, Koth arrived in New Londo and managed to seduce the 4 kings to follow his ideals, teaching them the art of life drain so that they could preserve their humanity even while undead, and so cast off the shackles placed upon them by the gods. But this dark influence did not stop with the kings. In fact, their entire army followed them as well. The Knights of the New Londo became Dark Wraiths, servants of the Dark who learned the art of life drain and used it to absorb humanity. As the 4 kings were able to open an abyss in the center of their city, their very bodies were mutated by their freed Dark Soul, and the Dark Wraiths' armor transformed too, as they began began to employ the red-eye orbs granted by Kot to seek humanity and plunge further into the powers of the dark. A nation of humans freed from the shackles of the dark side and who not only began to understand the powers of their dark soul but had an entire army at their disposal that shared this power represented an unparalleled threat to the gods of Anor Londo, who branded the Dark Wraiths as diabolical enemies of men and of every living thing. For this reason, Artorias, one of the 4 knights of Gwyn, was sent to fight the soldiers of New Londo and was given a silver pendant to deflect the dark of the abyss in its magical forms. However, this did not prove sufficient to cross the abyss of the 4 kings, and Artorias was forced to forge a covenant with the beasts of the abyss, obtaining a ring that would allow him to cross the abyss but also cursing his greatsword. Artorias thus became known as the Abyss Walker and hunted the Dark Wraiths but failed to eliminate the 4 kings and thus eliminate the abyss of New Londo. Having failed to eliminate the dark threat, an agonizing and terrible decision was made, flooding the entire land of New Londo despite the realization that countless lives and the entire culture of the country would be lost. For this task, sorcerers were called, and the feat was accomplished without even evacuating the city's civilians, sealing away the 4 kings, their dark wraiths, and the entire population with them. The victims were thus cursed and became ghosts roaming the ruins of their country, making mincemeat of any being within Blade's reach. The sorcerers who carried out the deed remained on site with the task of becoming guardians of the magic seal and the floodgates built around the city, wearing crimson robes that symbolized their resolve to keep the seal shut forever and their atonement for all who were sacrificed. Over time, however, 2 of the 3 sorcerers abandoned New Londo upon tiring of their duties and leaving Ingward alone to wait for a chosen Undead strong enough to obtain the Lord Vessel and challenge the 4 kings. Although decades have passed since New Londo was reduced to rubble and submerged, the 4 kings remained alive in their abyss, while the Dark Wraith continued to wait and control the area. When a chosen Undead was able to ring the bells of awakening, overcome the challenges of Sense Fortress and reach Anor Londo, thus being rewarded with the Lord Vessel, they would be guided by Kingseeker Framt to find immense souls to fill the receptacle and link the fading first flame to succeed Gwyn in his sacrifice. The undead would thus have proved their strength to Ingward to open the floodgates of the city and find a way to traverse the abyss until they reach the 4 kings, challenging and killing them to obtain fragment of a Lord Soul they still possessed. The Duke's Archives is a large library full of books. It is also the place where the golem carrying the pendant required to access the DLC is found. It can be accessed through Anor Londo. It contains vast amount of knowledge. It is the home of Seath the Scaleless, which is the dragon that betrayed its kind. It was granted to Seath by Gwyn as a reward for aiding in the birth of the Age of Fire. The 6-eyed channelers found here are servants of Seath, seeking and kidnapping inhabitants of Lordran for his research. The Pisaka are among the results of these experiments. Archive Tower was turned to a prison once it had a casual role of storing books. Cell below, now inhabited by Pisakas, once held countless maidens. Currently it is empty. Apart from few key persons, prison guardians are serpent men. Crystal Cave is behind the Duke's Archives, surrounded by a couple of crystal golems. This place is full of crystals and imaginary bridges. The way one can move across is by dropping prism stones or knowing the area early on. At the end of the area, the fight with Seath will take place, and this time it will be a real fight unlike his first appearance, as this time it takes place at the Primordial Crystal, which makes Seath immortal. After defeating Quelaag, a new bonfire is found underneath Quelaag's domain. This is Demon Ruins, and it leads to Lost Izalith. Most of the place is full of lava, but to get rid of it, the ceaseless discharge boss needs to be slain. After that, most of the lava will be drained while some will remain. There will be an orange fog blocking the path to Lost Izalith, but to make it go away, the chosen undead needs to put the Lord Vessel in front of the door to Kiln of the First Flame. After dealing with ceaseless discharge, there are 2 more bosses that needs to be slain. Demon Farsage, which is another version of the Asylum demon, and the Centipede demon. If the Lord Vessel was placed earlier, the orange fog will be gone now and one can advance to the Lost Izalith. After slaying the centipede demon, it will drop the orange charred ring, which allows the chosen undead to take as minimal damage as possible and navigate Lost Izalith. It is full of undead dragons and has some tree branches which works as paths to navigate around. It used to be the domain of the Witch of Izalith. It used to be a booming city as well. The witch attempted to recreate the first flame from her own Lord Soul but failed to control it, which later transformed the witch to Bed of Chaos. Izalith was subsequently overrun by the demons born from the Bed of Chaos. The demons fought against Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, and his knights were defeated. Firelink Alter is the place before the gates of Kiln of the First Flame. Here the chosen undead needs to place the Lord Vessel and offer up the required souls in order to fight Gwyn. Firstly, players can talk to Frampt or Koth depending on whom they side with, and while in the Abyss, right after the Four Kings boss battle, they can entrust their flesh to the chosen serpent, who will swallow the chosen undead and then regurgitate them at the Firelink Altar. It is here that the player places the Lord Vessel on the altar and fills it with the various Lord Souls in order to access the Kiln of the First Flame to confront Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. This area is accessed by offering to the Lord Vessels the souls of Bed of Chaos, the Four Kings, Gravelord Nido, and Seed the Scaleless in the Firelink Altar. It is the final area of the game. The Kiln of the First Flame houses the First Flame where the Lords first found their Lord Souls. At some point, the structure of the Kiln was constructed around the cave where the First Flame was first discovered, during the Age of Ancients. This is the place where we fight Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. After accessing the DLC, the first place is the Sanctuary Garden. It is a rather small location containing a boss fight with the Sanctuary Guardian. The Oolacile Sanctuary is the second location which the players travels through in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC. It is the home to Elizabeth. The Royal Wood is part of Oolacile and is slowly being altered by the Abyss. Giant chasms have emerged by the time the chosen undead arrives. Remnants of Oolacile's magic can still be utilized in the form of stone elevators. The Royal Wood is Darkroot Garden long before the time of the chosen undead. Many landmarks and features that have been held constant can still be observed. Oolacile Township is the area found right after the Royal Wood and starts with the Colosseum that serves as an arena for the fight with the Knight Artorias. The Oolacile Township dungeon is a very short area that works as a bridge to Chasm of the Abyss. This is the final area of the DLC. The unique feature of this area is that it's the only one that has humanity phantoms appear in the game. This area also serves the boss fight to Manus, Father of the Abyss. Now that we have covered the locations of Dark Souls, let's move on to the characters of Lordran. When the First Flame arrived, there were 4 beings who found the Lord Souls within the flames. They were Nido, the First of the Dead, the Witch of Izalith, Gwyn, and the Furtive Pygmy. Gravelord Nido is the one who claimed the Soul of Death. He took part in the war against the dragons. He unleashed the miasma of death upon the dragons during the war. As the war was lost by the dragon, Nido simply resided in the Tomb of the Giants and governed the death of all living things. The PvP-oriented Covenant, Gravelord Servants, is supposed to be a cult devoted to spreading death. They kill all over space and time in order to prove their duty to Nido by presenting him the Eye of Death, which is an online play item and can be used to invade others. In order to reach Kiln of the First Flame, his soul is a requirement. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters got a hold of the Soul of Life within the First Flame. She used the flames and power of her Lord Soul to weave a storm of fire at the everlasting dragons. She passed the fragments of the Lord Soul to her children. As fire fades, she tried to recreate the fire, but that came at a cost of her life. Except for Quelaag, all of her children became demons. Quelaag became the mother of pyromancy as she taught humans the skills of pyromancy. Much like the First Flame, the flame of chaos began to fade, and that made many of the demons to die. She and her children turned to Bed of Chaos as a result of her attempt. Ceaseless Discharge might be her only son. Gwyn is the one who claimed the Soul of Light. With the acquired knowledge about the dragon's mortality from Seath, he used his power he found within the souls to fight the dragons in the war. After killing the dragons and winning the war, Gwyn became the king of Lordran and bestowed fragments of his soul to Nido, the Witch of Izalith, Seath, and the four kings of New Londo. This is the reason why the chosen undead needs to kill these bosses and get the souls back to offer them at the doors of Kiln of the First Flame. He also had 4 loyal knights. They are Ornstein, Artorias, Gau, and Kieran. Ornstein appears in the boss fight along with Smough in Anor Londo, and after beating them, the player can reach the chamber of the princess and talk to Guinevere, the daughter of Gwyn, who will grant the Lord Vessel to the chosen undead needed to open the doors of Kiln. Gau appears in the DLC and helps the chosen undead to kill the black dragon Calamite. Artorias appears as a master of Sif in the DLC, and after killing him, Kieran appears on the grave of Artorias. The reason his executioner Smough didn't become a knight was due to him being a cannibal. Gwyn had a son named Gwyndolin. Gwyndolin is an optional boss fight. He used to be worshipped by humans as the god of the dark moon, and held the title of Sun in the Dark, due to his birth under the feminine sign of the moon and its influence that gave him a strong moon magic, as well as his lineage. Gwyndolin was raised as a female so that he could not become the king's heir. While still young, Gwyn made him to wear women's clothing and gave him a magic ring which would allow Gwyndolin to move and act like a girl, leading him to behave like a sullen, brooding goddess. This could also be interpreted as he knew his fate but didn't want that for his son, as when his son becomes the heir, he will probably need to sacrifice himself in order to keep the fire going, just like how Gwyn did. In his fear of the Age of Dark, he sacrificed himself to the First Flame, prolonging the Age of Fire and becoming Lord of Cinder. This act rendered Gwyn hollow. At some point, his firstborn son tamed a storm drake and allied with the dragon's descendants. For this treachery, he was stripped of his godhood and banished, expunged from all records of history. Lastly, the furtive pygmy is the one who claimed the dark soul and kept it hidden as a secret. They are believed to be the ancestors of mankind. As human beings kept evolving, the dark souls resonated within. Humanity is the fragment of dark soul. Anything else beyond this is unknown about the furtive pygmy. Master Logan was a famous sorcerer and a royal member of the Vinheim Dragon School before he turned undead about 100 years ago. His nickname stems from the gigantic hat he wore, which completely hid his face. He used it to block the noise and stares from those around him in order to focus his thoughts. His weapon was once an ordinary catalyst employed by the sorcerers of Vinheim, but it has since been upgraded due to lengthy use over time. Similarly, his robe is one typically worn by apprentices at Dragon School. In his attempt to reach Anor Londo, presumably to gain access to the Duke's archives and its vast store of endless knowledge, he became imprisoned in Sen's fortress, where he first encounters the Chosen Undead. The Chosen Undead can save him from the cage, and if done so, he will appear in the Firelink Shrine. However, if the player decides to learn every spell from him and Griggs, they will no longer be the best ones at sorcery, since the Chosen Undead knows as much as them. This makes them feel purposeless. So to gather more knowledge about sorcery, they visit Sid's library and in the Duke's archive. But tragically, this makes them turn hollow. Griggs was an apprentice of Big Hat Logan. Not much is known about him other than the fact that both Big Hat Logan and him might be from different times, but because of the time warping in Lordran, they meet together. If the Chosen Undead kills Griggs, he will drop the Hush sorcery upon death, which might imply that he used to be some kind of a thief. Oscar is the very first knight and character that is introduced once the game starts. When the Chosen Undead is trapped at the cell, he's the one who drops the key. Why did he do this is unknown, but it could be implied that he did to see if there was a Chosen Undead out of the hollows that might ring the bells of awakening. Shortly after he drops the key, the Chosen Undead finds and makes their way to Oscar. Turns out he is dying and is afraid that he will go hollow. There is an Asylum demon outside and on top of the cell where Oscar dropped the key for the Chosen Undead. So it might be that he tried to fight the demon but was badly wounded and ended up in the small room where he is encountered. It is implied that the ensuing despair he felt at being unable to even overcome his first obstacle as an undead is what truly turned him hollow. This is the warrior who is always sitting at the Firelink Shrine. he will always guide the chosen undead to the right path. He is the one who tells the chosen undead about the bells of awakening, but he is always hopeless and depressed. Still, he finds his purpose in helping newcomers. It is only when the chosen undead successfully rings both bells of awakening and Frampt appears in Firelink Shrine, he begins to lose his purpose. Now the chosen undead is no longer inexperienced, which makes the Crestfallen Warrior think he has lost his purpose, as no longer he needs to guide someone. This tragically makes him go hollow in New Londo Ruins. Primordial Serpents are dark, grey-skinned creatures resembling serpents. There are 2 of them. As mentioned before, after ringing the bells of awakening, Kingseeker Frampt will appear at the Firelink Shrine and will give the chosen undead tasks he needs to complete. Frampt was a friend of Lord Gwyn and is possibly working with Gwyndolin, as Gwyndolin created the illusion of Guinevere, which suggests that the chosen undead listened to Frampt and linked the first flame to succeed Gwyn. The second serpent resides in the Abyss and is revealed after killing the 4 kings. Koth gave the 4 kings the art of life drain and consequently founded the Darkroot Covenant, as well as tricked the residents of Oolacile into uncovering the corpse of Manus and driving him mad, which sparked the spread of the Abyss, as well as turning the townsfolk into different monsters whose humanity has run wild, just like Manus's. When the game ends, if the player decided to become the Dark Lord, more serpents will be revealed, but in the gameplay there are only 2 that will appear. Ornstein is one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn. During the War of the Dragons, he fought and earned the title of Dragon Slayer Knight and became one of Gwyn's trusted knights. When Gwyn's firstborn son was exiled from Anor Londo, everyone left except Ornstein and Smough. He stayed in order to guard the cathedral where Guinevere resided. Smough appears beside Ornstein in the boss fight. He was the royal executioner residing in Anor Londo. Despite his immense power, he could not become Gwyn's knight because he is a cannibal. When everyone left Anor Londo, he alongside Ornstein became the final test for the chosen undead before they can receive the Lord Vessel from Guinevere. After centuries of waiting for the chosen undead, Ornstein left his duty in order to look for the Nameless King, but Smough remained loyal to Guinevere. Both Smough and Ornstein meet their end when they face the chosen undead. The first time everyone meets Dusk is after killing the Hydra at Darkroot Basin. Following the stream will reveal a golden golem where the DLC entrance should be. After killing the golden golem, trapped Dusk will now be set free. She will reveal that she was taken from her home and banished to a plane of distortion. Dusk is from the ancient and long-dead land of Oolacile, which practiced magic alien even to the magic realm of Vinheim. It is unknown how she was trapped in the golem in the first place, but it is clear that she is in the wrong era. In the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, after killing the final boss, Manus, it will be revealed that Manus had her trapped all along. Killing her will also make the mushroom Elizabeth die in the DLC as well. Artorias is one of the strongest warrior. He was also a Knight of Gwyn, but when he went to the Abyss, he was completely consumed by it. In the DLC, the chosen undead travels back in time and kills Artorias, and before meeting Manus, they can find young Sif surrounded by humanity phantoms. Interestingly, if the player chooses to complete the DLC before fighting Sif at the Darkroot Garden, Sif will actually recognize the chosen undead and be depressed that it has no choice but to fight the chosen undead. Reason for this to happen is because no matter what, Sif doesn't want the chosen undead to travel to the Abyss and be consumed by it exactly like Artorias. But without knowing that, the chosen undead kills him for it. After defeating the Taurus demon, the chosen undead meets with Solaire of Astora. He is determined to find his own son. He is very faithful and optimistic. Solaire and the chosen undead come across each other multiple times in both of their journeys. And like the chosen undead, Solaire also has 2 fates, and only one of them will happen in each playthrough. If the chosen undead donates 30 humanity to Quelaag's dying sister, they can gain rank 2 in her covenant, which allows a shortcut to open up and leading to the Sunlight Maggot. If the Sunlight Maggot is killed, the player will receive the Sunlight Maggot helmet, which lights up areas around the chosen undead, but they will also save Solaire, because if the sunlight maggot isn't killed, Solaire will come across it and will believe that it was the sun he was looking for all along, and in turn will become hostile towards the chosen undead by going insane and giving the players no choice but to kill him. However, if kept alive, he can be summoned for the final fight with Gwen. The first time Siegmeyer appears is in front of the doors of Sand's fortress. He can be seen taking a nap. Siegmeyer is always jolly and polite. He craves an adventure almost more than anything. However, the chosen undead gets in his path and by helping him, keeps robbing him of the very adventure that he craves so much. If Siegmeyer is alive and above 50 HP after fighting in the pit, he will stay alive until Ash Lake. However, after visiting Ash Lake, the chosen undead will see that they were too late as Siegmeyer tragically went hollow. When he became hollow, his daughter Sieglinde had no other choice but to kill the hollowed husk of her father as hollowed Siegmeyer tried to attack Sieglinde. One way of looking at it is that Siegmeyer craved an adventure, but the chosen undead kept robbing him off of that, which led him feel purposeless as he couldn't seek what he cherished and in return became hollow. After ringing the bell on top, a mysterious figure will appear in front of the chosen undead. He is Oswald of Carim. He is also known as Oswald the Pardoner. If the player commits a sin, which is basically attacking any major NPC but not killing them completely, they can be absolved of their sins by talking to Oswald. He preaches that, after all, it is human to commit sin. Little is known about Oswald. He reveals little of his own past, and other characters never mention him. He is aware of the existence of Petrus as well as his treachery, but it is unknown how he knows this. After entering the depths and killing the second butcher, Laurentius can be found in a room full of barrels. He was probably kept as a hostage by one of the butchers. After saving him, he will thank the chosen undead and return to Firelink Shrine. If the chosen undead acquires better pyromancies or upgrades the existing flame from Quelaag, Laurentius will notice and ask from where did the chosen undead learn such powers. After answering him, he sees the purpose of learning better pyromancies. Unfortunately, because of that, he goes to the lower part of Blighttown that is full of poison and in search of Quelaag becomes hollow, as Quelaag only appears when the chosen undead has pyromancy flame upgraded to +10 and she didn't appear for Laurentius, which implies that she might be seen to such pyromancers who have a lot of experience and thus might be worthy to meet her. The world of Dark Souls is rich and deep in lore. The Age of Ancients did end, and thus began the Age of Fire. But as the saying goes, every fire eventually fades away. There are many players that played Dark Souls, but only a fraction of them truly became the chosen undead, while the rest of them gave up and eventually became hollow. But all of them were human. And as humans are the ones who possess the Dark Soul, that is why this game is called Dark Souls, implying all the humans who tried to become the chosen undead. Thank you for watching. Perfect Enrager signing out.